So Steelbender opened a little over 3 years ago here as a tap room. We very quickly sort of got into the distribution aspect of things, and about a year and a half in, we decided to start making cider. I came from the chefing world into the brewing world, and so the ingredients and using local ingredients has always been a very important part of my sort of philosophy. So with our cider, there's no difference. I always use the ingredients that are as local as I can find. So the name Steelbender came about when searching for a name. The owners are 3 generations in construction here in New Mexico, and they have a shop that's located just behind the brewery here. And they were giving somebody a tour, and the person on the tour pointed at a big machine in the back of the building and said, "Hey, what's that?" It's a big old German metal brake built in the 1940s, I believe. Somebody said, "Oh, that's a big metal brake. We call it the Steelbender." And so, of course, that's where the name Steelbender was born. As far as the facilities go here, we were blessed with success. So we opened up thinking that we were going to squeak by on the brewery space that we constructed in the tap room. After about a year, once we started distributing and once we found out how popular we were, we needed to expand. And so being a construction company and having the land available, we just went ahead and built a new building to get ready for production to come. So that's how this building came about. Right now, in the way I have it set up, we can comfortably brew about 8,000 barrels of beer every year. The cider tanks, cider being in the mix there, we can probably do, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 to 2,000 barrels of cider in the mix of that 8,000 barrels. Cider for me has been a pet project for a little while now. I started getting into cider about 3 or 4 years ago. Being so beer-centric for so many years, I started tasting some more ciders from around the world and realized that there was a whole nother sort of realm that I'd been not really paying attention to. Of course, I'd tasted wine and I love wine and beer, but then really getting into some of the different techniques of cider making from France and England really got me interested in trying it out a little bit. One of the big factors that played into the decision to start going whole hog was an orchard that's right down the street here in Los Ranchos that I was approached by somebody managing it and saying, "Hey, by the way, next year we're going to have all these surplus apples. Would you be interested in making a cider with apples just from Los Ranchos?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So that sort of got the ball rolling and just got us going. I got a press and a crusher. And so we started then pressing our own ciders, and that's really when I was hooked. So we have, it's really sort of we have two streams of cider here. I do a draft cider. That's the cider that we do in cans. So I do a filtered and an unfiltered version. And like I said, that's made from juice that we bring in, and it's fermented here and then back sweetened with more of the same juice that we bring in. And that's really set up in these big tanks, and it's set up for a quick production model. So really about 6 weeks to 2 months, we can get a batch of this out. Some of the other ciders that we make here on the different stream are what we call the heritage ciders. And so those are the ciders that we make with apples that we've sourced from different places in New Mexico that we press in-house and we ferment with varying degrees of natural and ambient yeast and added yeast, and just sort of really playing with barrels and different flavors and fermentation techniques to try to get the most out of the apples that we can source. We are going to be bottling in just the next couple of weeks cider with apples that come predominantly from an orchard in Abiquiu. And this is the first chance I've had to really mess around with something that's mostly cider variety apples, sort of the old heirloom varieties like Kingston Black and Dabinet and Brown Snout. Some of the things that you wouldn't necessarily eat as a table apple, but the character after fermentation is really special. This is the cider that we're going to be tasting with the Cider Social Club. This is Steelbender cider. So this is our draft and can variety that we keep on all the time. This is a semi-dry cider. And so we ferment one batch of juice down to dry, get all of the sugar out of it. And then after it's stabilized, we then add more juice as a back sweetener. And then for this product, we then filter it down, carbonate it, get it into a can, and then do a very fast pasteurization process. So this one drinks with a great tart nose. Like I said, it's off dry, semi-dry. It's got a nice apple flavor, really just trying to emphasize that this is an apple product and want to get as much apple character as I can in here. Not too sweet, not too dry, sort of right in the middle. Great prickly carbonation. I guess the proof is in the pudding though, so. All right, so this is it. This is our Steelbender draft cider. Pours a nice light amber color. It's got some, like a lot of apple in the nose, a little bit of berry, a little bit of strawberry from the particular type of yeast and fermentation schedule that I use. We're really trying to coax as much as we can out of the apples here and really try to showcase as much of that fermentation profile as possible as well. I'd just like to emphasize how excited I am to be a part of what I see as sort of a cider and apple renaissance in New Mexico. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of great work right now. A lot of apples grown in New Mexico that have been falling on the ground for decades, and I'm really excited to be part of the movement now that's getting those apples into fermenters and into people's hands. So cheers, New Mexico.